I'd like to call this meeting to order. Going to ask that any viewers, please put yourself on mute. Thank you. Due to the COVID-19 health emergency and in order for the Board of Education to conduct its business, this board meeting is being held via video conference. I'm sorry, but I need somebody to please mute themselves. Somebody who's joined Zoom needs to mute themselves. Thank you. It's being streamed live on YouTube on the district website. In addition, members of the public may provide comment at this meeting through Zoom by entering the URL, meeting ID, and password you will see before you on the screen. Upon joining the meeting, your participation will be muted to ensure that there is no disruption to the business being conducted by the Board of Education. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu.
Here.
Mr. Sismar.
Here.
Mrs. Guas.
Here.
Mr. Hong.
Here.
Mrs. Lax.
Here.
Mrs. Reese.
Here.
Mr. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Winston.
Here.
President Becker.
Present. We have a quorum. Please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America.
And to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies. Again, I'm going to ask those who are watching through Zoom to please mute yourselves. Thank you so much. The Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted at the Board of Education offices. Written notice was also provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home News, and the Tribune, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped. Individuals who speak at the board's public meeting should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening. We're going to start off this evening with the superintendent report. Dr. Valesky.
Thank you, President Becker. Good evening, everyone. As I announced earlier this week, on Mondays, November 16th, the district will move to full remote instruction until Monday, January 11th. I have heard from some in our community who are disappointed and, quite frankly, upset about this decision. And in spite of the Herculean work of our custodial staff to clean and sanitize all our facilities, our safe EV bubble was about to be compromised. Without immediate intervention, we potentially would have been forced to close anyway, combined with unnecessary COVID exposures on top of it. And just an aside, I spoke with the head of the Middlesex County Department of Health tonight. He did confirm that so far schools have not been the spread of COVID-19, but COVID-19 is beginning to infiltrate schools from outside because of community activities and gatherings. We are ready to bring more students back on November 17th. And I know this shift to remote seems sudden because it was. Safety always comes first. Then we can reassess. And to that end, we are immediately reassessing services that students depend upon and how we can safely deliver those services to meet the critical needs of selected students. I want the East Brunswick community to understand that all while adjustments have been made for November 17th, and they've been deferred until January, we are planning to return to face-to-face hybrid instruction when it is safe enough to do so. Unless COVID transmissions in our community between now and the new year derail our efforts, you will continuously be updated on each new step toward our return. Now for some news and updates that are more fun. On Monday, October 26, 24 students were inducted into the high school chapter of the Tri-M Music Honor Society. Our membership now includes 51 high school music students. The selected distinguished students have met the criteria as a Tri-M candidate for student membership and will serve as a good example always willing to assist those students who are striving to better themselves in the music department. On Monday, November 9th, the district held a virtual ESL literacy night for K-12 ELLs and their families. Churchill and high school families met with secondary ESL teachers and counselors to learn about Naviance and how this will help their children in college and career research process. Elementary ELL families learn tips and tricks for successful learning in our current educational environment. The East Brunswick Public Library spotlighted opportunities for adults to learn English. We are thankful to the ESL and counseling department for their collaboration. Memorial School, along with their student council, worked with the East Brunswick Recreation and Parks Department to honor our veterans. The students created posters that were shown during a pre-recorded Veterans Day ceremony that included the Veterans Alliance, Mayor Brad Cohen, and town council members. EBTV aired this program on Veterans Day yesterday. American Education Week is November 16th through November 20th. This week highlights the importance of providing a high-quality education to all children. Congratulations to our girls tennis team on winning the NJSIAA sectional tournament. And this fall, we had 4 student athletes who signed letters of commitment to play their sport at the collegiate level. We wish them well as they continue their academic and athletic careers. First quarter report cards can be viewed online through Parent Access on Tuesday, November 24th. Again, that's Tuesday, November 24th. Hard copies will be made available at the request of anyone without internet access. And just a reminder that Wednesday, November 25th is a single session day, and schools are closed on Thursday, November 26th and Friday, November 27th for Thanksgiving. I'd like to wish everyone a safe Thanksgiving and a holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valesky. We're going to start off this evening with a proclamation.
Excuse me, President Becker, regarding the report, is there an opportunity just to ask a couple of clarification questions, or is that an improper procedure?
Matt, is this an appropriate place for board members to ask questions about Victor's report, or should it be under the good of the cause of the board?
You're muted, Matt.
Matt, you
You're
need to
muted.
unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted now. Sorry about that. They can ask a question about Victor's report. That's not a problem.
Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Dr. Valesky, thank you for the report. You mentioned, can you help me or help the public understand a little bit more about what went into the decision at this time? I, like you, are getting a lot of questions and inquiries regarding decisions, why, when, now. Do you mind answering a little bit of that?
No, not at all. And thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Winston. So, obviously we were all on break last week, and we acknowledged that people gathered and some people traveled. We encouraged everyone who had planned travel to quarantine if they were in an area that required that quarantine before they came back. We encouraged our staff that if they were traveling to let us know so we can make accommodations for them so they didn't re-enter our school environment. So as we returned on Monday, we started to get immediate reports of people who were reporting symptomatic. Tuesday, we started getting more reports of people symptomatic. And then literally the hours before I had made the decision, somebody gave me a heads up that the urgent care centers in East Brunswick were packed. I physically drove to every single one. The parking lots were completely full, and people were standing in lines around the facilities waiting to be tested. I talked to the Middlesex County Department of Health. They were overwhelmed with testing requests, and the backlog for testing was starting to push out to, instead of like 24 hours, it was longer than that. I don't want to give a definitive time, but it was taking longer than a 24-hour to 48-hour period. And even including last night, after we had already made the decision, staff members were reporting to our HR director that they were symptomatic, they were awaiting testing, and we expect that wave to continue all through this week. And that was before well before the governor's announcement today that he is going to allow townships to impose an 8 o'clock curfew on non-essential activities. But we started to see the trend, and I wanted to make sure at this point we had not had a person-to-person transmission within the boundaries of East Brunswick Public Schools. And I wanted to prevent that. I wanted to prevent the integrity of the safety of our people so we would be able to return. My thought was if we start a spreader type of activity, we are going to be in a position we won't be able to return because we won't have staff to staff our buildings, and it'll be a vicious cycle. So this was simply a stopgap, and I understand some people have reported, and have reached out to me, and they're quite upset. And I understand that, and I understand their right to have that feeling. But I'm simply trying to protect the interest of the masses of East Brunswick Public Schools, teachers, students, and the families they go back to, so that we can remain as well as possible and as safe as possible. I'm confident we can do that. But as I mentioned in the report, we do have students that have critical needs that we need to address even during this time. And we are going to find ways to do that in a safe manner so the parents of those students can feel confident that we're researching the best options, and we'll be discussing, in fact, options with the board in closed session tonight.
Well, thank you. I mean, I, for one, think those were all prudent decisions, and I agree with you and did actually witness myself the lines. But using the same criteria that you mentioned, and bringing the virus perhaps home or amongst the masses, can you speak to me about what your decision is going to be on the sports programs and other programs where folks gather? I noticed that wasn't mentioned in the,
it was not, but we are going to, I am working with a number of other superintendents in Middlesex County, and we're looking at options to actually slide or modify the schedule to later in the year. So those are discussions that are ongoing right now.
So sports at this point, though, are also part of this shutdown?
We are, everything sports related or anything non-instructional, Mr. Winston, is still scheduled. So I left that caveat out there. And the reason why is those are decisions to be made yet. It's not to say that we are going to continue with it. It's to say that we are going to address each component in its singularity, because I don't have an option for the board to consider about a modified schedule for winter sports or about sliding the schedule or who we compete against. And those are things I want to share with the board before I make an announcement to the community.
I'm very confused now, but you do have the option to suspend sports at this time for the same criteria that you had used, that you had just stated. Am I right about? You just said that it was for
I do have
health and safety,
that option, but I have
bringing the virus home and all.
Right. But we have.
How do you delineate between the two?
Our athletes have been really respectful and really responsible about maintaining their safety and about making sure that they're protecting themselves and the rest of the team. So they've created their own bubbles, but that's not to say that as an organization, we need to look at it, because we have all, as superintendents of at least the Brunswicks, we have talked among ourselves about maintaining that safety for all of our students, for the officials. We still want the students to have a season. It may mean that we have to slide that season to make it happen safely.
I'm having trouble understanding the delineation.
Well, I simply didn't shut down sports. I didn't shut down all district operations in its totality. The instructional part, yes, because we were having teachers that were reporting to work and then we're reporting later that they might be symptomatic. So we want to make sure that we address that issue first. Then we were going to look at sports. We are going to look at every element of our utilization of the building. Right now, SATs are still scheduled in our building. We have different activities that are non-instructional that we can tightly control. But everything is under review, and we are going to address them individually.
Thank you.
Dr. Valesky, what will happen to the rest of our extracurricular activities? Will they, any clubs or?
We are virtualized in so many regards, President Becker, that a lot of that will continue as it's going right now.
Okay. Anybody else from the board wishing to say anything? Questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda tonight. Thank you, Jeff. We're starting out tonight with a proclamation for American Education Week. Lori, if you would please do the honors and read the proclamation.
Sure. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas public education employees, be they administrators, teachers, health and student service workers, media specialists, custodians, bus drivers, clerical workers, food service professionals, skilled trade workers, school security officers, technical employees, or substitutes, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas public schools encourage community by bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials for a common purpose. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education proclaims November 16th through 20th, 2020 as American Education Week.
Can I please have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Barbara,
Second, Jeff.
second by Jeff. Is there any discussion? Lori?
I just wanted to say that this is one of my favorite weeks every year I look forward to, because it's a chance for the parents to see exactly how spectacular our teachers and staff are. So if they didn't know already, based on the way these teachers have had to teach these kids and take every obstacle that's been thrown at them, this is just one other thing that makes me a little sad about the way that our year is shaping up. So I'm glad that despite the fact that our parents won't be sitting in our buildings watching their children learn, that we're still acknowledging how important this week is. So I thank you to all of our staff and the educators that make every week National Educators Week, but to you guys, thank you for so much that you've done.
To me, the most important phrase in the proclamation you read, Lori, is public schools encourage community. And it's bringing together adults and children, educators, volunteers, business leaders, elected officials. So it truly is a community effort, and that goes to every aspect of our community. Obviously, we start right here with our incredible public education employees. It extends to the students and their parents, but the entire town has come together. As the proclamation said again, volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials for a common purpose. And boy, if we ever needed to be united, it's now. So I agree with you. This is a very special American Education Week that we're celebrating, and that we indeed are lucky enough in this district to get to celebrate every day. Anyone, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Now we come to the good of the cause to the public. Members of the public may provide comment at this meeting through Zoom by entering the meeting ID and password provided on the screen in front of you. In order to be recognized, use the chat feature. Select the Zoom meeting host, then enter and send your name to the host. You will be recognized to speak when your name is called. Individuals will be invited to speak in the order in which you have received your request. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues to protect the privacy of all students and staff. Concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff. Participants will be limited to 3 minutes duration. And I want to remind the public that the good of the cause to the public is an opportunity for members of the public to come and speak to the board. It is not a time to have a dialogue. So please don't mistake our sitting and listening to you as anything other than we are sitting and listening to you. This is your chance to show and give us your voice. If there are questions, they will be duly noted by the board secretary and the superintendent, and someone on their staff will get back to you with answers. But the good of the cause is not intended as a dialogue. It's intended as a time for the public to come and speak. With that being said, Bernie, is there anyone wishing to address the board tonight?
Yes, so far we have 2 individuals in the queue. The first
Okay.
individual is Heather James. Is James,
Welcome, Heather.
if you'll unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes, hi, thank you so
Hi,
much.
Heather.
Hi, thank you so much for recognizing me. I apologize, I'm not allowed to start my video. It was actually stopped by the host, or you would be able to see my face. But anyway, thank you again. So I appreciate you having the public here. I just wanted to, note my frustration with the fast transition to virtual. I understand this is not a time to ask questions, but I do have a few. I'm a parent of an elementary school student, and there have been no cases at our school. There's been very little spread within the elementary schools. And, we have a lot of working parents in this district. 4 business days is not enough time to secure the kind of childcare that is necessary for an elementary student moving from hybrid to fully virtual. I mean, this, a high school kid maybe can be left at home alone or something, but an elementary school child cannot. And so, I find it difficult to see the public health reason for such short notice when, I mean, there are hardly any cases in in the elementary schools at all. And so I don't know, I just want to really express the burden for working parents that is caused by such a short notice. And I did wonder why it was not possible at least to keep the elementary schools open for longer, to give us more time. Maybe to consider only closing the high schools, because that's where there seems to be more spread, and then I was also wondering about the learning centers at the schools, which seems like, they seem like they will be closed as well. So I did also have questions about non-instructional activities, but Jeff asked some of those. So yeah, I guess that pretty much sums it up, but thank you for your time, and I definitely appreciate any response to the questions.
Thank you, Heather. And by the way, I didn't mean that you're there. This wasn't the place for questions. This is absolutely the place for questions. What I meant is that you may not necessarily get an answer tonight if we don't have one. And that's what I meant about an administrator following up with you. But Dr. Valesky, as well as the entire board, listens to everything the public has to say. Dr. Valesky, I noticed that you unmuted yourself.
Yes, ma'am. If I could.
Of course.
I completely understand the concern. As a parent, I understand the frustration of such short notice. But I felt as though, given the data that we were presented with in just a matter of 24 hours, the number of people not necessarily in the elementary schools, but within the elementary schools orbit, and people who could potentially come in, we were encouraging them to stay out, to get tested. We had enormous numbers of absences on both Monday and Tuesday. Those are numbers I have in my head right now. We were in excess of 100 absences, and I think excess of 120 absences on Tuesday. So this was something I wanted to get ahead of. And I know it's frustrating for parents, but as I said earlier, I'd rather be safe than make decisions based on the fact that we've kept everybody safe first. If we had an outbreak and that began to spread, then we are way behind and we can't keep up with it, especially given the significance of the testing, and people who should have gotten tested or potentially would need to get tested may defer that because they go to the testing centers, they encounter long lines, they don't want to wait, and they simply say, I'll take my chances to see if the symptoms get worse. By that time, they may have been around other people. It's a difficult situation, and I understand your frustration, but believe me, it's something that I felt we had to do in spite of the angst I created for a lot of people.
Thank you, Dr. Valesky, and thank you again, Heather. Bernie, who's next?
Next, we have Dana Zimbicki. If you please unmute yourself.
Welcome, Dana.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, you so much tonight for acknowledging American Public Education Week and recognition for strong public schools. Of course, New Jersey, for the second year in a row, has been named #1 in the country for public schools, and I'm confident that East Brunswick has been a major contributor to that wonderful acknowledgement. I want to thank all of our 1,450 members of the East Brunswick Education Association for their dedication, their diligence, and positivity as they navigated through hybrid learning and now remote learning. And I want to thank our support staff for keeping our buildings safe and clean and prepared every single day. We have done an amazing job. I also want to thank the East Brunswick Principals and Supervisors Association for supporting our members of the East Brunswick Education Association. And a thank you also to Central Administration for valuing the work our members have been doing. We made it through an entire marking period safely and with great success. So thank you very much for your acknowledgement. Thank you to all of my members. And, I look forward to more successes as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Is there anyone else wishing to address the public, Bernie?
No, we have no one else in the queue.
Okay, seeing none, I close the public portion. Now we're going to have a public hearing on the school level self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. So I just wanted to remind people, as a public hearing, the public has the right to comment on this issue and this issue only after the presentation. So I wanted to put up the screen again to give you the meeting ID and password and link to the website if you indeed wish to speak on the issue we're about to get a presentation on. Thank you, Bernie. And I believe the presentation will be Lou?
Take care of that. Yes. Thank you, Mrs.
Awesome.
Becker, and good evening, everyone. The Commissioner of Education developed a program to grade each public school and school district's efforts to implement the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, or the ABBR. This time period was from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. A rubric was developed by the Department of Education, and each school was asked to self-assess their school's implementation of the ABBR. Now on your screen, you will see the self-assessment consists of 8 core elements: HIB programs, training, additional staff instruction, curriculum and instruction or HIB-related information, HIB personnel, school HIB reporting procedures, HIB investigation procedures, and actual HIB reporting. It is required that the self-assessment be made available for public comment. The self-assessment results must be approved by the Board of Education and submitted to the state by December 1st, 2020. The school district's grade will be the average of the grades of each school in the district. Each school safety team was charged with assigning ratings based on the criteria and available documentation supporting each score. The Department of Education will post all school and school district scores on the New Jersey Department of Education homeroom page, and each school must post the grade received and the district score on their school's webpage. The school district must post the district grade, which is the average of all the school self-assessment scores, on the district's homepage. The scoring for each component of each element was as follows. A 0 does not meet requirements, partially was 1, meets all requirements 2, and exceeds requirements was 3. Some important notes, based on our 2018-2019 HIB self-assessment, the areas that required attention were additional training for Bully Prevention Climate Committee, or the BPCC, and additional training for community programs, the morning and the aftercare especially. In order to address these areas, multiple trainings were arranged. The anti-bullying specialists were trained as trainers through Olveus. They facilitated summer professional development for the BPCC and the safety and climate teams. Also, a training program was developed by our anti-bullying specialists and community program staff was trained as well. Based on our 2019-2020 HIB self-assessment, we did earn a perfect score. We will, however, continue to have our school safety and climate teams meet to focus on building school climate through activities, as well as mindfulness strategies, health, and wellness. Now, 3 years ago, our district total average was 77.7. 2 years ago, it was 78, and the district total average for last year was a 78 again, which is a perfect score. Now, so much of working with students regarding HIBs surrounds counseling and social emotional health rather than discipline. So we will continue to support health and wellness, even virtually, through individual group counseling sessions, social skills training, student observations, additional meetings to address concerns through RTI, INRS, 504, IEPs, parent phone, email, and virtual sessions, collaboration with outside therapeutic providers, and make referrals for outside resources. Also, collaboration for student success through grade level meetings, collaboration with classroom teachers, virtual suicide risk and threat assessments, and virtual class lessons. We'll also have training for parents to support their children during virtual instruction. Our child study teams will continue in-person evaluations, virtual IEP meetings. They'll monitor student performance and propose appropriate program modifications if necessary. They'll monitor implementation of the IEP, including all related services. Our student assistance specialists will continue to work as our anti-bullying specialists, our 504 coordinators, our safety and climate team co-chairs. They'll also be doing social and emotional programming, substance abuse support, and counseling. Our school counselors will facilitate INRS meetings, monitor RTI interventions, college and career planning, do academic advising and counseling, create student schedules, parent presentations, and facilitate college fair and college visits. Just to give you a rough idea of the number of some of the supports and the students that we serve, last year we had 554 total students participating in groups. We had 177 students receiving support through 504s, 1,591 through supports through IEPs. We had over 34,000 counseling session case notes logged. That's through our student assistance specialists and our school counselors. I want to take this opportunity, if I may, to thank Dr. Valesky and the Board of Education for allowing us to partner with Effective School Solutions, or ESS. Our student assistance specialists collaborate to make referrals with ESS. ESS provides therapeutic intervention for most of our at-risk students. ESS provides therapy for individualized period of time, utilizing curriculums in anger management, substance abuse, and bereavement when applicable. ESS provides monthly parent support, and ESS also provides professional development and support for staff. So thank you, Dr. Valesky and the Board of Education for your support. That is my report this evening. Are there any questions?
So first, I want to ask if there's anyone from the public who wishes to address this topic in the public hearing and this topic only. Bernie, is there anyone in the queue?
There is no one in the queue on this topic.
Okay, seeing none, I close the public portion of this hearing. Lou, I actually had a question for you. The lanes that we go to try and provide social and emotional support is wonderful. In terms of training and educating, we often think of our school employees in terms of giving them the training they need to facilitate the process. I'm wondering if we could do a better job with educating our parents on what the process, the HIB process looks like from start to finish. I get a lot of questions from parents. What happens if my child is a victim or written up in an HIB report? Do they get interviewed? Am I there? When does the board get involved? Does the board get involved? What does an appeal look like? Who can I talk to? So I just think, I mean, it's great that we're getting high scores. but we are a district that never rests on its laurels. And I think that we probably could do a better job educating parents on what the process is.
Well, that's absolutely, Ms. Becker, thank you very much. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about this. One of the areas that we are looking into is doing more either parent evening where we do educate parents. We also have materials that we give parents. We use the opportunities also at our back to school nights or other venues where parents either virtually or in person have been in the schools. Also, if there's a parent that has a question or concern, our student assistant specialists do most of the training in the buildings for staff. We'll work with students and we'll work with families. I work alongside of Danielle Blaylock to help work with the student assistant specialists on a regular basis. So student assistant specialists are really the key for each individual school's information center when it comes to anything HIB. If someone has a concern or needs additional information, they can always contact my office, and I'd be happy to either sit down with them or to reach out and speak to them on the phone, however it may be, as long as we're socially distancing.
Thank you. And I'd expect no less. You and your staff are incredibly committed to doing the best thing for our students, staff, and parents. But I was even thinking about something simple. It's kind of like what to do if, like a one-sheeter. What to do if your child finds themselves involved in an HIB investigation, either as the accused or the accuser. Just kind of bullets, what will follow, what happens the day after, what does it look like from the child's point of view? What do the parents need to do? Just kind of and I think it's something that we could do for a lot of our processes that we facilitate with stakeholders other than our staff, mainly the parents. Come up with a what to do if kind of thing on the website or even on the individual school websites, so that it would be a primer of sorts for parents. Sometimes knowledge can make a situation less scary.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Agreed. We can definitely update our processes on the website and look to put more information out to the schools so that, and also I think we could bring it up more often when we are meeting with and talking with parents. So thank you, Ms. Becker. Great suggestions.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Mr. Figueroa. Is it Mr. or Doctor? You're Dr. Figueroa now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I get the title right. Yes.
You can call me anything that you'd like, Mr.
I just
Winter.
call him
Don't
Lou.
call me late for dinner.
That still works. A question for you. Now, during this period of time where everything is going to be virtual, obviously the shift on HIB changes quite a bit, and I can't imagine it takes a vacation. So can you tell me a little bit about how you're going to, this adapts in these periods of virtual learning? So I imagine the rules of engagement are a little different.
Yes, well, as a matter of fact, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about this. And my team met today basically to discuss just what you're saying. What we do now is we will make sure our student assistant specialists, our counselors, our child study teams, our specialists will reach out to students more on a one-on-one and group basis to say, how are we doing? What's this situation like? Hey, you had an issue with this last time. Can we talk about it? This is something that is an ongoing process already for students who are virtual, who have issues. But now with many of the students, as we know, there's a certain amount of stress and fear going back into now from, hybrid, going back to all virtual. We've had some parents with concerns with that. So we are making sure that we do reach out, that we do make ourselves extremely available right away, because I think, and one of the things that we have been doing, believe it or not, is there are virtual students who have not been in school all year physically that have had HIB issues on the outside, in their neighborhoods, in the park. We're dealing with those. That's part of what we do. And a big part of what we have done is really tried to, even if it's a virtual counseling session with the student, with the parents on both ends, we've really tried to make that a major part of what we try to look for in getting students to understand behaviors, and also to get to the root of why some students, will use bullying tactics or issues, at certain times.
No, I'm happy to hear that. Now, you mentioned that you're going to be doing reach out. Is there a subset of students, or is it your intention that the counselors reach out to their roster entirely in their student population? And if so, how frequently will they be doing that?
Well, we absolutely will want to reach out to students that we know may have some history of issues that we are presently working with. We will be reaching out to all students at some point during, the next few weeks. Hopefully we can get students, when we get students back in school, we can do some more, grouping with students in person, but we will continue to reach out and to try to make sure we have communicate with every student in the district at some level, whether through their student assistant specialist, through their school counselor, through their nurse, through an administrator, through their favorite teacher, speech therapist. It could be a number of ways that we reach out. And then we communicate as professionals to see at what areas and what lengths and what, services we may need to provide for certain students.
I appreciate it. I hate to see these kids suffer in silence.
Absolutely agree. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jeff. Barbara?
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Figueroa and Dr. Valesky and the whole team of the virtual counseling and all the different opportunities that have been online. I've been seeing Sources of Strength continuing. A lot of the wonderful programs that we have in person are virtual. Counselors are reaching out to the students. I'm sure there's always, further reach out, but from what I've seen, we know it's a tough time in the pandemic, and I'm very thankful for all that you're doing, as I'm sure we all are, for all your efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Board of Education. We have a tremendous team, and we really appreciate all of your support.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Moving on to our agenda tonight, the Board of Education agenda. Can I please have a motion for items 1, 2, and 3?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
second by Lee Wu. Is there any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Mark, did you raise your hand?
Sorry, scratch.
I'm
No.
sorry.
We didn't.
No.
Oh, okay. You were just motioning. Sorry. Okay. This is a roll call vote. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the community programs agenda, there is one item. Can I please have a motion for item number 1?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff, second by Barbara. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to our facilities agenda, can I please have a motion for items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Moved by Lee Wu,
Second.
second by Heather. Is there any discussion? Susanna, go ahead, and then I had a question too. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a question for Mr. Juliana about the RTU replacements. Is any of this tied to the ESIP program? Because I know the ESIP program had funded, some RTU work, and is this part of it, or is it separate?
No, the ESA program actually did not fund any RTU replacements. These RTU replacements are separately funded. These are absolutely essential at this time because they are essentially non-functioning, and we need to get them up and running before the weather gets too bad.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I was hoping we could get some incentives or, some help from the ESIP program on this, but I guess they didn't find any energy savings
Well,
opportunity.
part of it also is not only the energy savings that might come from it, which I would venture a guess was not to a level that would have warranted or justified replacements in these cases, but also, balancing out of the available funds that would come back to us, what are the priorities to be done? And we've gotten quite a lot. If you remember, the amount of funds that went into the project, if I recall correctly, were well in excess of $10 million.
Right.
So there's quite a lot of work that has occurred since the ESIP project began.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Bernie, was anything in the vault?
Oh yes, in the vault. Yes, when that underground vault was found, what was in the vault were 2 live transformers that belonged to PSG.
Okay.
So this has been a long time in coming in finally getting that vault removed. It's taken years, literally.
Jeff, you were a
Jeff,
graduate of East Brunswick
Yes.
High School, correct?
Well, that's why I was asking Bernie,
Yeah,
because
I
I did lose.
understand. The vault contains some information from the year you graduated.
No, I just lost my ID in 1979 and I'm still looking. That's all. I was just seeing if it was there. That's the only place I didn't look.
Do you still owe us money for that?
Listen, statute of limitations.
I don't know.
Matt? No, go ahead.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. On to our financial services agenda. Can I please have a motion for items 1 through 13?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff. Second by
Second,
anybody?
Oh,
Second,
sorry.
second by Susanna. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu,
yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to our human resources agenda. Can I please have a motion for items 1 through 3?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by
Anybody-
Jeff,
Second.
second by Heather. Is there any discussion? I actually have something for the secretary. I would like to pull for a future agenda, line 1 on page 10 of the personnel agenda.
Noted.
I don't need to do a
No,
motion.
that's sufficient. We're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Muted, Barb.
Or be muted?
I was frozen, sorry. Yeah, yes, except abstaining on number 1.
noted. If you were frozen, did you need a sweater?
Let it go, Bernie, get it, let it go.
Mr. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yep.
President Becker.
Yep, motion carries. Moving on to staff development. Can I please have a motion for item 1?
So moved.
Moved by Li Wu,
Second.
Second by Susanna. Is there any discussion? All those, Jeff, yes, no? Okay. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
Carries. Moving on to the student services agenda, I'd like to combine items 1 through 6. May I please have a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by Li Wu,
Second.
second by Lori. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the transportation services agenda. Can I please have a motion for item 1?
So moved.
Moved by Heather,
Second.
Second.
second by Lori. Is there any discussion? I actually have a question. When we are, given what we're about to do with going fully remote for students next week through that date in January, what happens to our bus contracts? Obviously, we won't be transporting students. Dr. Valesky?
Mr. Juliana, obviously, our contracts remain in force, and we will be doing professional development. We will be cleaning our buses and utilizing that time to ensure safe transportation services when we return. Mr. Juliana, do you want to elaborate?
I would like to, but I'm going to defer to Mr. Jacoby because this law, the law recently was changed regarding our obligation to contracted services. So, Mr. Jacoby, perhaps you can speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's important that everyone knows.
Right now, so what happened is the law changed back in the spring. And what they said is that during a public health emergency, declared state of emergency, whether it's COVID-19 or some other emergency, we do not have the right to cancel the contracts. We have to keep these people, the contracts in force. They only get paid their actual expenses. So if they have any savings, i.e. they aren't paying for fuel, wear and tear, they can't charge us for that. But the whole purpose is they don't want to have an overrun on the state unemployment system. So we have to keep those contracts in force. And the other reality is with busing, there's tremendous shortages of bus drivers and busing throughout the state. So we don't want to be in a perilous situation where we cancel the contracts for approximately 6 weeks. Because remember, we have Thanksgiving and then the Christmas recess or the winter recess. You're going to need those buses to come back in January. So we will not be able to cancel them. That's state law that was passed in, I think it was April of this year.
I'd like to supplement on that also, and Mr. Jacoby, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the changes in the law, well, prior to the change in law, one of the things that the district was a leader in the county is or was working with each of the contracted services, not only those servicing East Brunswick, but other districts throughout the county, and in having them provide appropriate documentation to prove that they actually incurred costs. Certainly, we would not want to be paying for contractors that did not have ongoing costs for staff.
And what we did there was actually some litigation, but overall, we were able to negotiate considerable savings for the district and for other districts throughout Middlesex County. And the whole purpose is that the contractors have to certify that they're not firing their employees. They can't use this as an opportunity to fire their employees and get a windfall. They have to certify to us that these people have remained employed, and if they don't, we don't have to pay for them. So the whole purpose is to keep people gainfully employed during these temporary shutdowns.
Just, of course, very important. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Is there any other discussion? Mark?
We probably don't have the answers to this, but would these private companies be using their drivers to do other routes during the school day? I know we have to pay them. I know we have to, and maybe you don't have this answer, but is there any requirement on their part not to be using these employees during the day on the taxpayers tab to do other private work?
Well, I'd say a lot of your drivers, are district employees. And then the ones that are
Yeah, not the private ones.
Yeah.
Not the district employees, the private companies.
What the law provides is that they have to be ready. So if for some reason COVID drops down and you reopen, just like, let's say hypothetically, you reopen the day after Thanksgiving, they have to be there and ready to service you. So I think it would be highly unlikely that they would pick these routes. There's not work to be picked up. Can an individual driver, most of these companies, what they have the drivers do is, work on the buses and do other things. Sometimes they deliver meals, assisted delivering of meals for the free and reduced children. But I haven't seen that in any of the districts so far throughout the state where somebody's been basically double dipping.
Great, thank you.
And Mark, if we ever learned of that, the first person we'd contact is the Middlesex County Prosecutor and the Attorney General, because that's a criminal activity.
Thank you. Nice job.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. I believe our student rep, Denise, with us tonight.
Good evening.
There you go. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing well, President Becker. How are you?
Good, thank you. We're looking forward to hearing what's going on.
Thank you. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the high school student opinion on shifting to online. And generally, it's well received and understood. I guess prioritizing caution is very important. And the notion that preventative measures are much better than reactive measures is extremely valuable and understood by the students, especially with the trends that are leading to higher cases. And it kind of matches the trends that I was talking about in my last report. With students, there being a slight shift and more students shifting to virtual as opposed to students shifting to hybrid. So it kind of plays into that trend, and it still, takes that cautious measure. And also for the staff as well. Thank you to the staff who had been coming in every single day of school, and now they have to prepare for the shift to online. So thank you to them. And then for the students, specifically seniors, now is kind of grind time for college applications. And one of the bigger deadlines was November 1st, and there's like mid-November ones and then December 1st. So shout out to my seniors who are going through that. And then speaking on events, unfortunately, 2 large and traditional events had to be postponed to the spring, one of them being homecoming, which was originally planned for 2 weeks ago, and then one of them being the Powder Puff game, which was supposed to be next week. Those aren't canceled, those are postponed to the spring, so hopefully we can still see them this year, just at a time where safety, and I guess safety is less of a concern. But luckily, for the past 2 Saturdays, we were able to hold a food drive, which was held by NHS, and working in conjunction with McFoods as well at the mall, and large turnout for the community from there. About 2,350 pounds of food was collected, as McFoods told me, and it's good that there was at least one event that brought out the community during this time. And that's it. That's all for the report.
Tell me, do you hear of a lot of students taking advantage of the virtual tours that colleges are offering in place of the regular in-person tours? And do you think that there's a value to them, that people are getting something out of it? I mean, nothing can replace being there, but.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, nothing can really replace being there, but people have been using virtual tours, especially since a lot of colleges closed campus in March, which is right around when people would start going, just to get a feel of the school, just to see what it's like. And I still think that, especially for students who are seriously considering schools, if they get accepted, they will go and visit and at least walk around campus, regardless of whether they can go into the building or not. But these virtual tours have been a great way of getting like a first impression.
Thank you. I was curious about that. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, committee reports, information items for the good of the cause for the board. I know Heather and Susanna, and Heather had mentioned she wanted to speak. Susanna, go ahead.
Just from the Human Relations Council, there's a unity walk tonight at 7:30. It's a virtual unity walk. As most of you know, the Human Relations Council has been holding this unity walk as an expression of unity in the community for the past few years. I want to thank Dr. Valesky for submitting a statement for the video tonight. So it's on Facebook Live. It'll be available for viewing later. And it's just an opportunity for the community to just, express positive messages. So look for it on East Brunswick Human Relations Council on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. I have Heather and Barbara wishing to speak. Heather? You need to unmute yourself, Heather.
Mine is not a committee report. I just wanted to thank Dr. Valesky and the administrative team for devising a plan that was so thorough and allowed us to open and offer a hybrid option from the first day in September. Our students had the opportunity to see their schools, to walk the halls. My own children that are in the schools both transferred to new schools this year. And that was a big deal to be able to be in the buildings and to meet their teachers. And we gave the opportunity to begin the school year with a choice that most districts really were unable to provide. I always love that in speaking to Dr. Valesky, he often says we evaluate things one half day at a time. He and the team have remained so transparent and open with the communication and just very data driven. So I also respect this decision that they've made that now is the time to move to remote learning until January. And I want to thank him and the teams for their endless hours, just dedicated to safety and monitoring the very latest COVID information. And I also appreciate the hours that are going into beyond just the learning setting, that have gone into creating modified activities and working on the opportunity to work with other districts for safe sports. I just wanted to say, I feel our 8,000 plus students and my own students here at home are just in the very best of hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, I got Barbara and then Mark.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a Community Programs Advisory Committee meeting. We had one on October the 26th. And just wanted to say thank you to all those involved, Anne-Marie Gilbert, the manager of community programs, and Janetta Contara, out of school time coordinator, and Joe Crotchfeld, the director of financial services. They were very thorough in explaining to us the huge efforts, really. I mean, again, similar to what Heather said, a thank you to our administration, Dr. Valesky, and to all the people who put so much effort into the Early Learning Academy, the adult school, the EMP program, enrichment. There's so many different areas. There's SAT, ACT prep, remote learning centers, just English, ESL for adults, adult school. So there are many different areas. And she went through for us all the cleaning protocols and the curriculum updates and enrichment opportunities. In fact, at one point, for the aftercare, they were having virtual tutoring for the students, so that as they did their homework, there were teachers available to help them with their homework. So thank you to all involved and for providing the support and for all the hard work that everyone has done.
Thank you, Barbara. Mark, you're up.
I'm a day late, but I never think it's too late to thank all of our veterans. I don't think we would have anything we have in this country, obviously, without the men and women who have made the sacrifice to be a veteran. Victor, I thank you for bringing it up. I know the programs they do in the schools are fantastic. And on a different note, I think it is, I would love to see sports move. I guess my internet's not going good. I would love to see sports move because I like to see sports on, but it is a tough pill to swallow to have sports occurring and in-school instruction not. So I hope you do come with an outcome of that to be able to move the sports as they go on. But it's just, it is kind of a conflicting statement, and it's just, I know you'll do the right thing, Dr. Valesky, but it's a tough one to not have one and to have the other. So thank you.
Anyone else from the board? Seeing none, we do have a need for a closed session. Whereas the Board of Education intends to discuss matters as follows. Those items in tonight's agenda, and the length of the closed session is estimated to be 1 hour, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action will not be taken. Can I please have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Liwu, second by Jeffs. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Board member, I want to remind you to please log out and log back into the closed session. For those of you who joined us tonight, thank you and stay safe.